You are paying them money to use a place that they own or will eventually own anyway, and they still have set rules for you. That's kind of like a prison camp, except that prisoners don't have to pay their jailers. Greetings and welcome to my official rant series on why things suck. In this video, I will go on and on about why renting is a f***ing scam. In fact, I've rented over 5 to 8 places, including long-term Airbnbs in the United States, and trust me, I speak from experience when I say that renting is not only a scam, but you literally mostly get zero benefits from renting. Zero! Firstly, your money goes on a one-way street and never returns, and you're basically sending money straight to the landlord. Just imagine every month you're sending a huge sum of money, usually just to rent a room, to a random stranger every month. You don't even know this person, you're just sending it every month. And the only purpose, the only goal of having a rent is to basically just keep you sheltered. That is all. There's no leverage. We talked about in the past lessons, we talked about in the past videos, basically that we have to exploit, take advantage, use money to leverage it and bring you more benefits. But trust me, renting is not one of those ways. In fact, it does not bring you any benefit except just keep you sheltered in a room. Now imagine renting forever and for the rest of your life. You're giving a large portion of that paycheck to some random goon. And don't get me started on the security deposit, okay? 14 to 60 days just to return the deposit, but yet when they demand the rent and deposit from you for the lease, they demand it immediately. What kind of unfair bullshit is that? Huh? It's like they want you to take a race car to go on the racetrack to whoosh that money towards them whilst you're signing the damn lease. And whilst, when you're leaving or whatever, your lease is ended, you want it back, you want to deposit it back, and you want to deposit it back, they take like the horse and carriage to send your bloody deposit back to you. What kind of unfair bullshit motherfucker is that? Secondly, your landlord knows a lot more about the laws to exploit you than you do. And there are definitely a lot of tenant-landlord civil suits out there, especially in the US and probably in other parts of the world. But trust me, they know how to sneak things in there that you probably won't know until it is too late, or until you read the laws. And having rented for over 5+ or so years, I know, they really do sneak things in there. Now, tenant protection does exist in some states and in some parts of the world, but again, it is completely useless. The amount of protection available for tenants are totally useless if you just don't even know they exist in the first place. And nobody tells you that. The landlords are going to tell you that. It's not in their favor to tell you something like that. So yes, tenant protection for us, tenants out there do exist, but most of us are either too ignorant, too stupid, or wait until it's too late to actually find out about them. Next, you do not own the place by renting. Yes, all that money, all that stream of cash going out every month, you are only still just borrowing. It is like a perpetual borrowing that never ends. Because renting is aka leasing, is aka loaning, is aka borrowing. You are not owning the place. Your money is basically just used to borrow forever. And unlike buying a house, for renting, you are still bound by the landlord's rules and regulations of how you should use or manage the place in some sense. Even though you live there, you cannot just do whatever you want. You just can't. You're still being controlled by the landlord. In essence, you are just basically borrowing, and there's certain rules that when it comes to borrowing. Next, you pay the landlord to own the place, including your room, using your money. That is right. You are basically like the employer paying them money for their services. Although unlike the employer, this particular employee you actually cannot fire. In fact, it's the other way around. This employee can fire you, the employer, for giving them money, aka, in other words, eviction. Think about that for a second. You are paying them money to use a place that they own or will eventually own anyway, and it is still their place, and they still have set rules for you. If you ask me, that's kind of like a prison camp, except that prisoners don't have to pay their jailers. Next, increasing rents in non-rent controlled areas, but yet your property, your room, everything is still the same value and same condition. Yes, rent increases do happen. In fact, they happen annually, about Depending on your area, location, whatever, your city, it could range anywhere between 3% to 10% of your rent. I mean, technically it's never happened to me because I've never really stayed at one place long enough for that to happen, but they do happen. But guess what? The value and the condition of the room and property is still the same. In fact, nothing has changed drastically to actually really warrant or merit that increase of the rent for you as a renter in the first place. They're only just doing that because they can. Finally, your experience is dependent on how well the property is being managed, even if you pay your rent on time, every time. Now, some landlords manage their own properties, while others get property managers who suck balls at getting back to you. Either way, regardless of the rent that you're paying, your living situation goes down to shit if you have a poor, bad, or non-existent communication channel with your landlord or property manager, the person who is managing the property itself. I mean, show of hands, right? Everyone can agree, I'm sure. Everyone remembers a time where they hated their rental situation, even if the place was fantastic, just because a property manager is shit at getting back to you or just doesn't fix things, right? Happens, we're human, right? A good deal becomes bad when the person involved in it rubs us the wrong way or is just a shit. Again, this is by no means an exhaustive list. So if you can find any more reasons why renting is a scam, please go ahead and comment on this video below. So now that you know renting is a scam, what else can we do? Especially if you're renting right now. How can we turn the situation around such that we benefit from it? Now on my screen right now, I have some contracts and agreements that you guys can consider in terms of turning things around. Again, the purposes of these contracts are basically for you to enhance or get out of or change your rental situation. Now, I personally was not able to find a situation that allowed me to use these contracts, but I hope you can if you want to and if that's your intention. So firstly, we have the sublease or sublet agreement. Now, this example I'm using is from Texas, and just so you know, each contract has different changes depending on where your location is and what the laws for real estate and rentals and tenants, blah, 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 are at that place. So if you're currently renting right now and the landlord is open to this subleasing option, you can bring it up as an option for you both to benefit, because I'm sure the landlord will only consider this if there's something to gain for them. So what a sublease is, if you guys are not sure, is basically allowing you to lease out a space in the space that you're leasing to somebody else. So basically this is like your Airbnb option. But if you're renting, you have to obviously check with your property manager and landlord first. You can't just randomly just set up Airbnbs. You can actually get into trouble for that. So it allows you to rent out a part of your space that you do not own legally. That's what the whole point of a sublease agreement is for. Now, most people, they do not check with their landlords, and then they get into trouble or even get evicted from the property for secretly subleasing. So you don't really want to do that. You don't want to risk that, knowing that you already hate your situation so much. I mean, unless you really hate it that much and you want to get out. So people that I know renting right now who are actually subleasing via an actual agreement, I would say of all the renters right now in this world, probably only 20% or less of renters are actually subleasing legally with an agreement. And again, you might have to check with your master lease on any sublease regulations that they have on the lease that you sign. Basically, a master lease is obviously a master of all the leases that you sign. For example, a master lease of a condominium would be the lease on the entire building itself instead of just your room. Master lease on the apartment building would be the lease on the entire apartment building itself instead of just your individual lease for the individual room. So I'm not going to go through the contract details for this sublease agreement because, again, I'm not a real estate lawyer or whatever. So in general, if you read through this, it's just describing you as basically the sublessor, that's you, and the subtenant, which is the person that is going to be the Airbnb guest, kind of. Alright, so next up we have the lease option agreement, in other words known as the rent to own. Now this is only if you really want to live at that place that you're currently renting right now. And the cool thing about the lease option agreement, or aka the purchase option agreement, is that after a certain time of the lease, it gives you the option to buy the property. And dependent on the clauses and what is included in terms, your rent is not going to waste. Your rent actually goes into paying for ownership of the home, which is pretty cool. Think about it. You're right now renting, all that money is going away forever on a one-way street, not being used for anything but for a purchase option or a lease option agreement. It gives you the option to buy the house using your existent or your currently paid rent already, instead of going to waste and going to your landlord's pockets, bringing you no benefit at all. Now, people doing a lease option agreement, I would say, of the renters right now, I guess the renter population in the world, I guess, people doing lease option agreements would most likely be about 10% or less of renters. Because to be honest, most renters do not know this exists unless you know. So usually this is more applicable, this lease option is more applicable to landed properties or houses than condominiums or apartments, which makes sense because, why would you want to own a small unit? This is more fitting for a house or, a landed, grounded property that you can eventually own. Now, to find a situation, it would be best to work with the homeowner who is selling directly. Also, you can find real estate investors who can also help in the situation by being a source of knowing people with rent-to-own situations for you to look through. Again, we're not going to go through this agreement itself, but you can take a look at this very briefly. You can even Google this online. It is basically listing out the terms of, okay, so what amount is going to go into buying the house? You have the option. What's the deadline? How many days you have to declare your interest in buying the house? If not, you lose that option or that right to purchase the house at this current set price. And lastly, the last possible option for now to solve the renting issue is to become the enemy. Few renters I know eventually become landlords because they don't even know how to get started, or they think that they can't be one without first owning a home. But if you keep renting, you will never own a home. So what now? Now, I would say of the entire renter population of the world, although claiming it is for the world is a little bit of a stretch, I would say that about less than 5% of renters eventually level up to become landlords and masters of the universe. It is just too rare. Let's think about it. The system is going to be in play regardless of whether you rent or own. So why not become the kingpin of the system? Become the one who gets the rental paychecks from renters instead of the other way around. That way you get to eventually help the other renters out. If you want to help, of course, it's entirely dependent on you. Personally, for me, I see renting as a business. It depends on which side of the equation you want to be on. Do you want to be the one having money coming out of your hard-earned cash flow every month, or risk getting threatened to be kicked onto the streets? Or do you want to be the one who has other people pay for you to own a room? 10 rooms, 10 units, a condominium, or 100 houses? You decide for yourself, but I know for sure as hell which option I am already working towards. So there you have it. This is why renting is a f***ing scam. If you're serious about getting out of your vicious renting cycle, then don't keep renting forever and letting your landlords exploit you as an ATM. Become the landlord and then tell your previous landlords to go f*** themselves. Now, I challenge you to think for yourself and ask yourself these questions. Do you believe renting is a scam to you? As in you, yes, you watching this video right now. How do you plan to solve that problem? Is it really a problem for you? Go on and comment your thoughts below. But please, no spam. If you spam, I will print 1 million copies of all my past rental agreements and then throw them in your face if you spam. Alright, so this is it for now. We've come to the end of this rant. Now, if you had fun, had a good laugh, or learned something new today, then please like this video by poking the like button. And if you like a lot of my videos, then perhaps it actually makes much more sense and it makes things easier for yourself to subscribe to my channel by hitting the subscribe button and ringing the little notification bell for updates. Now then, this is Vicki Lau, signing off.